Welcome back to Kelly's Chronicles. Hope everyone had a wonderful week and everyone got a lot of fun things done and went on some adventures. We are back with our favorite guest, Dad, Chuck. And we have some really fun stories for you this week that we were kind of rolling around in our we kind of like to prep ourselves before we get on video, so we were kind of chit-chatting about what we wanted to talk about. So we're just gonna kind of have some fun stories for you today. And how was your week this week, Dad? What were you up to?
Well, just did church stuff, and also went to uh, go to rodeo this week. To, Bancroft Rodeo was for
You went to the didn't you go to
it's
the Downey Rodeo?
yeah. There's we actually today we went down to the the South Bannock County Rodeo in Downey and saw the hog judging, 4-H hog judging.
Okay.
Is unusual in that they're judging now. The kids 4-H they have their hogs, mostly Poland Chinas, which they're black with a white stripe around their middle, or they can be
Oh
like
yeah,
a
I know
lot
which
of
ones you're
different
talking
colors.
about. Yeah.
But the classic Poland China is black with a white stripe around their gut,
Yeah, those are
around their
beautiful pigs. Very
yeah, just
beautiful.
about. Yeah, they're beautiful. Anyway, they had the judging, and it's they have a judge in the arena. Have like about 8 or 10 kids have their hogs in there. They got like a little coach whip, just a little, about 3 foot long, slender, like a piece of bamboo, like into the bamboo pole, and that's what they use to move the hog around. They smack the hog. They can't hit the hand. It has to be up between the neck and the front loin
Oh,
where they
okay.
hit them. They can't beat them anywhere else. And they gently tap them with this rod, and the pig goes wherever they want to go. And
Okay.
there's a few out there that don't like being tapped, and they're all grunting and going a different way. But generally speaking, the kids can control these hogs with this little piece of bamboo, and they kind of parade the hogs around the judge in the ring, and they're judged by showmanship and control of the animal. That's one of the
Okay.
big things. And then I think they also judge the animal's appearance. But they're all about the same age. They're yearling hogs. So they're all about 250 to 300 pounds. You know what they're called? And the males are called barrows, which is a castrated male. They have some sows out there. And there's no boar hogs out there. They
Right.
still have all their equipment
Okay.
because they are too nasty. You don't want to be around them things.
Oh, are they pretty mean?
Oh, they're real mean.
Feisty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you ever watch The Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy falls into the pig pen,
Oh, yes. I do remember
and,
that.
and the straw man
And yeah,
freaks
her
out because
uncles.
Dorothy's in the hog pen. He runs over and pulls her out, helps her get out, and they're all like shaking, and because
Yeah, they're really shook up.
the
Yeah.
pig will eat people. They will devour human flesh.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to be around them when they're a mature, fully grown boar hog is a mean animal, and they will
Yeah.
come after. So you just don't want
That's
to. You don't want to get in the big pen. You pour your slop over the fence.
So you went to a rodeo. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, I went to
So,
the county fair has a rodeo. They have like county fair goes 5th through the 8th, I think. They have a
mhm.
1 day rodeo. Got a complete arena there and everything. So
Ah, that's
and the
fun.
livestock was already in place. So we drove by and they had the bulls, the bucking horses already there in a little holding pen for the rodeos can be short.
It's awesome.
And then
Oh,
let's see, I helped Al, my neighbor, went in and bought a new 12-foot paddock gate. We got that hung and
nice.
used the old gate to seal off the pasture. And then I had two workers in here yesterday. They finished putting the plastic roofing on the new deck across the east side of the house. And
Oh,
let's see what else. Oh, we had I put out some. Well, I usually fill up the humming. I got two hummingbird feeders, and I usually fill them up. Like a week or sure they've got some stuff in them. And this morning there was like 10 hummingbirds, just I mean, hanging around the feeder on the back deck, and they're
that's
chasing each other
awesome.
around. Yeah,
Oh,
I got a
I'm
video
having
of it. It's pretty cute.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
they're
was
they're
that was
beautiful little
Mother's Day
birds.
present this year. Was the hummingbird feeders from all of us kids, and I know
Yeah.
how much you guys love hummingbirds and watching them. They sure are fun little birds to just enjoy observing. So that's awesome. Sounds like a really good week. So last week we talked a lot about some of your childhood and how you grew up, talked about your parents and kind of how they dated and got married. A little bit about your grandma and your grandpa. So we kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about some family stories from great grandpa Olson, so your grandfather and his father, because we have a couple of really fun family stories that have been passed down over the years. We have a, a uncle that disappeared in Alaska. We've got a runaway story. We have just a couple of really fun stories. So you had mentioned earlier today about kind of a family feud that I didn't know about between the Menshaws and the Olsons. So you want to talk a little bit about that, what we were talking about?
Yeah, well, you have to remember that my mom and dad were third cousins.
Mm-hmm.
There were the Minshaws and the Olsons and the Robothams.
So they're all
Were
family.
all they were all rooted in eastern Nebraska, all around mainly Lincoln area. And like Grandpa Olson was born in Nebraska, and all of his brothers and sisters were born in Nebraska.
What year
And
did you say he was born?
excuse me,
What year did you say that Grandpa Olson was born?
I think 94,
1894?
1894 or 1896. I'd have to look it up, but late 1800. Uh, like I said, everybody was born in that area. My mom, Ruby, was born in Eagle, Nebraska, which is just east of Lincoln. And a lot of the family is buried in Alvo, Nebraska, which is east of Lincoln, in the foothills.
Mm.
That's Ole and a lot of his brothers, sisters, because Ole had, well, no, Ole, but this was Oscar,
Mm-hmm.
Ole's children, uh, my great aunts and uncles, or there's several of them buried in Tut Hill Cemetery, Alvaro, and so that
Okay.
was just where they grew up. They grew up, and you have to remember how wild this was because in 1876, the last free roaming band of Sioux Indians surrendered to the Army in Kearney, Nebraska, Fort Kearney, Nebraska. It was only about 100 miles west of Lincoln, and so that was still the frontier, the
Oh, wow.
Wild West,
I
and
did not know that. That's some interesting
yeah,
history.
there was well, my dad. This is one thing. Uh, this was in eastern Colorado, and also up in when they lived north of Bethune. There were a lot that basically flat eastern Colorado, but there are like little hillocks everywhere, not mountains or hills, just little rises in the prairie, and that's where the
Yeah,
Indians
I've
camped
seen that.
out. And Dad had at least two 5-gallon lard buckets full of arrowheads, and I don't know what happened to him. He left them when he went in the Marine Corps, and they just disappeared. But he had there was Indian uh, remnants everywhere, and you
So
could
the real
find
one.
you would see their fire rings too. You get up on these little hills, and there would be a fire ring where they had the communal fire in the center of their little encampment. Found those, and he found arrowheads everywhere, and buffalo skulls, and I mean everything. You know, it all. So
Wow.
that whole area, eastern Colorado and eastern Nebraska, was very, very primitive and very pioneering frontier type of environment. There was no. Well, Dad grew up in that place had north of Bethune. It was
Mhm.
adobe. It was an adobe house. Now it had windows and everything. It wasn't like real primitive, but it was made of adobe brick. And
Wow.
I got pictures of that somewhere. So there
That'd
you
be neat to
go.
see.
I mean, they even have enough wood to build a house.
Yeah, there's no trees out there. That's
No, no.
very empty
Well,
land.
there's a few cottonwoods growing along the rivers, but you can't build a house with like 5 cottonwood trees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's yeah.
it it was pretty primitive. And anyway, getting back to the Minshaws and the Robothams. Now, what it was uh, a Robotham. The two of the sisters of the Ole family, the Olson family, married. One sister married a Minshaw, the other sister married a Robotham, and then down through the generations came, then Ruby and Dad, because Robotham was my grandmother's maiden name. So
Right.
they were all, they were all Eastern Nebraskans. And anyway, the parents ended up being third cousins. And so they were real close. They lived close to each other. And I'm not sure of all of the interconnections, but they were they were well known to each other. And when Mom and Dad married, it was like, whoa, a big deal. These two families got together as blood kin,
Hmm.
and then when they divorced, because the divorce was a direct result of Mom abandoning me and Larry and Dad and going to Loveland, 150 miles away, to work in a restaurant, which
Yeah.
was an unknown. I mean, there was no, as far as I know, there's no family history of restaurateurs, or chefs or anything like that. They
Yeah.
just got in the dark, oh, I'm going to open a restaurant. And took
Oh.
Bonnie, took Bonnie and Ruby away from their families.
Hmm.
Now Ruby Of course, her family, her husband and everything was in Burlington, but she had family, of course, in Loveland. And Bonnie had, I think Bonnie was married by then. I'm not real positive about that. But she was living in Loveland, so it was no big deal. She just walked down the street to work in a restaurant, whereas Mom was coming 150 miles away working in the restaurant. And then make things even more gruesome, she's gruesome but more dramatic, was that she fell in love with this big, good-looking, goofy guy that came in the restaurant to order, hamburgers. And,
Jacob.
and
Yeah,
yeah, old Jake. Uh, he was a farm boy. I
he
mean,
was.
grew up on a farm, and he wanted to be a farmer. Dad did not want. He didn't want nothing to do with farming. And Mom
Right.
Ruby wanted to be a farm wife. She thought that was the ideal, most wonderful thing in the world was to be a farm wife. So she was willing to just abandon everything, marry uh, this guy, and divorce his dad. And and of course, this all happened when I was like under 3 years old, like a
Yeah.
baby, basically. So I don't know everything that went on. I don't know what kind of marriage they had or anything. But I can tell you, I know the way Dad was after I became older and was living with the man. And I mean, basically got his own way. Uh,
Ah.
he didn't. I don't think he liked to have a whole lot of input about his decisions, and he just,
Okay.
this is how it's going to be. Boom, that's it. And being a Marine, and he was in the Air Force. He was in the Marines for 11 years, the Air Force for 9 years, but he was always a Marine. He
Yes.
never undid Marine. He was and he was a good Marine. He was a small arms instructor, and you ask any Marine or even any Army guy, any Army infantry guy, they will tell you small arms instructors are like gods. They run that range. In the Marine Corps, everybody has to qualify annually on their weapons. And Dad he was the range master, small
Okay.
arms instructor at Camp Pendleton. And I got a picture of him standing on the berm, because the way the Marines do their rifle ranges is they have this giant berm that's like probably 30 feet wide, and it runs for, I don't know, a quarter of a mile. And they fire, the Marines get down and they fire both ways off the berm. They have Marines firing to the east, Marines firing to the west, or whatever. And they
Oh,
have down at
okay.
500 yards away, they have the pits where maybe it's not, I don't know, anyway, a long way away from the berm have pits dug down in the ground where they have crews of men down there at each target. So when a Marine shoots out there, then the guy in the pit looks up and he sees a bullet hole in the target. And he has this the paddle on a stick, like a big fly swatter, and of course it's a red circle. He holds it up over the bullet hole, so the guy 500 yards away or whatever can look down range, see where he hit. Then he can adjust his sights to hit the bullseye. And Dad everybody would come down to qualify. He had officers and senior enlisted and everybody down there qualifying, doing their annual qualification. And if they did anything that wasn't absolutely according to regulations, my dad would be on him like stink on poop, and Harry on an ape or whatever. And they were, I mean, he didn't care what rank they were. That was his range. He was the god that
Wow.
everybody had to obey. Period. No question.
So
You mess with the range, with a small arms instructor, the range master, you are in deep kimchi. They will come down on you. They don't Marines they don't take any when that comes to that qualification. It's required, and so if you mess that up by being stupid, uh-uh, you're in trouble
wow.
because that reflects on everything, fitness report, everything. Kind of
I
because to begin with, Marines are all riflemen. That's their whole scenario. You're a Marine, you're a rifleman. Doesn't make a difference. You're a cook, or a computer genius, or tank driver, or whatever. You're a rifleman. And everybody qualifies on a rifle. That's it. Boom. No argument. And
so Grandpa ran
yeah.
that range. Did people have to pass through him? Like, was he the one that would pass people, or was he
Oh
just
yeah. Oh
overseeing?
yeah. Now they kept score. They kept score. But if they did something stupid, and you can, if you're working, you've got live ammunition, in a rifle, and you mess up and you kill somebody because you're stupid, or even
Oh
just do
my God.
anything. Like you don't even stand up when you get down in the prone position, and you don't stand up with your rifle. Uh-uh. Stand up with your rifle, you fail. That range master's right there. He's got a couple of assistants, of course, but he's the big guy, and he's something like that happens, man, they're just like on you, and they don't care. You could be a high-ranking officer or something, and they tear you up, throw you
Hmm.
off the range. You failed. You didn't
So he
qualify.
so he was
Period.
a so he was an excellent marksman, you would probably say on
Oh
that one,
yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Dad was on an Air Force pistol team over in Turkey.
I
They
didn't
went
know
up
that.
to the way I understand it is he went up to Germany and went up and competed in Germany for the Air Force, all Air Force marksmanship. I'm not
Wow.
sure. I don't think he made it to the finals, but he
But
was good enough shot with a 45. That's what they fired was 45 Colt 45,
wow.
1911, and he was good enough on that pistol to go to leave Turkey and go up to Germany and compete. But he really didn't talk about it very much. I got a
Yeah.
picture of him. I got him a picture of him standing on a beach in Turkey by the Mediterranean Sea shooting his 45. I got a picture of him.
Oh,
But
that
other than that,
you
I
have to
don't
find
know.
that one.
I know that he did go to Germany, and the guys that he went with, it was like a team that went up there. I don't know how many guys, be 100. I don't know. A bunch of guys went to Germany to compete in this Air Force. Matter of fact, I think it was all European thing because there was hundreds of thousands of military. This was in the 50s. It was 50s, 89. So there were, I mean, lots of military in Europe at that time because the Russians were right there. My dad went with his team, and a bunch of them, they flew him up there, and a bunch of them bought Mercedes Benz that drove him back to Turkey.
Ah,
You could buy Mercedes Benz from the factory. You have to remember, this is only like 15 years after the war. So
yeah.
Germany was still trying to recover. There was still an East and West Germany and all that. So they went up to this competition, and they could buy a Mercedes, brand new Mercedes, and it's all of the accoutrements like leather interior, all kinds of stuff, Michelin tires and everything. But anyway, they could buy this really nice Mercedes Benz for like $2,000.
Okay.
So a lot of the guys bought Mercedes, took it back to Turkey, and then the Air Force would put the Mercedes on a boat, ship it back
And
to the States. They
yeah, that's what I was
got
wondering.
traded out. And yeah, Dad said, I don't want any freaking German piece of garbage.
Oh,
He did
what?
not like. He didn't like Germans. He
Oh,
didn't like Japanese, and he
well,
didn't have. Yeah, he did not want to have anything to do.
he
But
fought in the war against them, so
right,
yeah.
but he did buy me a German typewriter for my
Oh,
birthday, and brought it. He bought
yeah.
it. Well, I think he brought it back from Turkey with him. It was a Olympus typewriter, a little portable typewriter. And he
Yeah.
also bought a some either record player or radio or something, a Grundy, which is a German make. And he brought that back with him, and that's about
Very-
it. He didn't buy any cuckoo clocks or anything.
Yeah. No way.
Yeah,
So you were talking,
practical stuff.
yeah, practical things. So
Yeah.
I would assume that he was probably taught a lot by his dad because his dad was also an excellent marksman.
Yes.
I think you want to tell the story about that one because that's a fun story.
Yeah. Well, Grandpa, I was telling you about him growing up in eastern Nebraska, and
Yep.
when they were like developing the West, one of the things they would do would they would come and put in telegraph poles all over the West. And that was the main means of communication. Was write a letter or send a telegram. So if you write a letter, it might take a week or two to get from down to another, but a telegraph was instant. So if you wanted to
Correct.
send an instant message about anything, send it on a telegraph. Well, all these telegraph poles, when Bell Telephone developed the phone in the early 1900s, all the telegraph poles were basically abandoned because the telephone could also you could send telegraph on a telephone because it's all electric. Telephones are electric, telegraphs are electric, and so they just abandoned the poles that were set aside for telegraphs, and Bell put in their own pole.
Okay.
I guess, whatever. Anyway, so here's these hundreds of telegraph poles. They keep saying telegraph poles spread out across the West. And so one of the pastimes was shooting the insulators off the telegraph poles. They big
Glass insulated.
glass insulators to hold the wires up off of the wood so they wouldn't short out in the rain. And Grandpa would ride a horse at full gallop. He's a great rider. Ride at full gallop with a Winchester rifle and shoot the telegraph pole insulators off the poles.
I love that
And
story.
that's like, that's been told over and over again that he could do that. And he had like five brothers and four sisters, I think.
Hmm.
And he was the best shot of all those boys. And
That's
probably one of
awesome.
the best shots in the whole area.
I
He was a big,
yeah.
yeah, he's a big old strapping boy. He was 6'6",
Yep.
and, a gorgeous man. Got a picture of him at his wedding day.
Yes,
And
I
any
posted that on the
woman,
last video.
any woman with a brain and an eyeball would look at my grandpa in 1919 and think, "Whoa, I want that man."
That's a handsome fella.
Yeah, he was quite the looker.
And he had his
And
eye on Grandma.
he
She's
did.
beautiful woman. Beautiful
Yeah.
woman. I posted that wedding picture on our last video, and I had forgotten how beautiful she is, and she had the prettiest little sly smile on her face on her wedding day. Like, I bagged this man. I did it, ladies. I have won.
Yeah.
She
Eat your hearts out,
eats
ladies.
your
He's
hearts out,
mine.
ladies. She really does. She has the cutest smile on her face. Like, she just won the biggest prize in the world. It's, you guys have to go and look at it again if you didn't watch it in the last video, but it's a very beautiful picture. I love that one. So that is
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorite stories about Oscar, is that he was I wish he would have done some competitions. I think that would have been even more fun. I'm sure he probably did with his buddies. You know, they go out and say, you got 5 in a row, you win, tonight's beer
Yeah.
or something, you know?
Right. I'm
So,
sure there was stuff like that going on. I mean, that was like,
oh, I'm
you know,
sure.
I mean, if you look at like historical photos of that time period, and you see these grizzled looking, farmers and cowboys and stuff sitting in a saloon somewhere, and it looks exactly like it did like in 1860 or 1870.
Yeah.
It was tough. I mean, back in New York and Chicago, stuff, they were all cityfied and all sophisticated, clean cut. Boy, you go out there in that Nebraska, Colorado, Dakotas, it was. Well, I mean, you stop, look in history, that Teddy Roosevelt was up in that time period. He was up in North Dakota with the Rough Riders up there.
Yes, he was.
He fought in the war of, Spanish American War of 1898. So in the late 1800s, Teddy Roosevelt was up, a couple of hundred miles north in Nebraska, up
Yes,
there
well,
for cattle and stuff, and living the frontier life, and made all kinds of friends up there of the cowboys that were up there in North Dakota, and that's where he got the Rough Riders that went to Cuba, the Spanish American War.
oh, yeah.
So it was, and those guys were rough looking. I mean, just all got the farmers tans and old grizzle
Yeah,
looking, old ratty looking hats and everything. That's them. That's them
that's our
cowboys. They crazy.
kid.
Yeah. So that was kind of that whole. If you look at that middle, I don't know what you call it. It's not Midwest. It's the West, but it's north. It's the northern part of the West. The Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming,
Yeah.
Colorado, Nebraska. That's all. And by the way, Buffalo Bill had a ranch in North Platte, Nebraska,
Oh,
about 50 miles from Lincoln. Got a big. It's still there. Buffalo
I
Bill's
didn't know
ranch is
that.
still there in North Platte, and yeah, it was a rugged place. You did not go there, and
Just have fun.
expect to even have
Yeah.
indoor plumbing. It was not. It wasn't there, and
Yeah.
it was still really
Oh,
rugged. Oh, and another story uh, that I can think of about Grandpa decided that Wyoming is where he wanted to live.
this is
So for
Oscar.
whatever reason, right after he got married, I mean, it was like I think they only had a couple of kids by then, and he moved up to Wyoming. And
Oh,
I'm not sure if he went up there for cheap land or he was going to work on a ranch or what. But they moved up to Wyoming, and they were up there for a couple of years. I'd have to go look at my files, but he was up
huh.
there for a couple of years in Wyoming,
Huh.
which is more Wild West than
That's
East
very, yeah.
Colorado, Nebraska, wherever. And
I did not
yeah,
know Oscar went up there. That's really.
yeah,
So you
and of
had
course,
mentioned that Oscar kind of ran away from home when he kind of probably when he turned about 18, I'm assuming, or 19, you know.
Well, yeah, he was still a teenager, and
Oh,
of course, all the family was there in eastern Nebraska, and they were just developing hard red winter wheat and triticale, which is another type of wheat. They had genetically these. I think the Department of Agriculture, federal government, had developed these two new types of wheat that were revolutionary. There was never anything like it. And
okay.
what you do is you go in as hard red winter wheat. You go in and you plant it in the fall, plow your deal, harvest whatever you had there, and plow the field, plant this hard red winter wheat. And it would just go, you put it in the ground, and it would sit there over winter, and snow would come, and in that what they call dry land farming, about the only moisture you get is you get a snow, sometimes a lot, sometimes not much, and then
Mm-hmm.
not much rain. You don't get a whole lot of rain ever. You get maybe total moisture, maybe 10 to 15 inches for everything,
Very
snow
good.
and rain. So this winter wheat would sit there in the ground, snow would melt, water the wheat, and it would start sprouting in the spring. Then, like in July, August, you could harvest it, and you could still have time to get like a field. You could get oats or something like a cover crop, planted and harvested before the first frost. And
Okay.
so everybody loved it. Everybody thought this was great, and it was like a gold rush. People were coming from all over America and probably everywhere else, streaming into these plains of western Kansas and eastern Colorado, even up into Nebraska and up in the Dakotas, planting this hard red winter wheat and making good money. And uh, Grandpa was in town. He's living in Lincoln, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's living in Lincoln,
Mhm.
and or maybe one of the other, like Alva or somewhere out in the suburbs. He's basically a city boy. He didn't
Ah,
want to do that. You know, he wanted to be independent and do his own thing. So he left his whole family. He had 9 brothers and sisters, parents, and all these other relatives that were living in the area. And he went down to eastern Colorado and looked around down there, and then he was a carpenter. So he went with the development that was going on over in Denver and Colorado Springs, and he
okay.
built a bunch of stuff in Manitou Springs, which is
Ah,
right there at the foot of Pikes Peak. And
where the Cog
he built
Railroad is.
stuff there, and that's where your cousin got married.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Uh, yeah,
Oh,
that's where he
Jacob.
went
Jacob.
to that big, huh?
Our cousin Jacob.
Yeah, when Jake got
Oh,
married.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a Manitou Inn in Manitou Springs. And maybe
Okay.
Grandpa Olson built that. Who knows?
That, yeah, I was gonna say he might have helped build that. I did not. I
Yeah,
knew he was a carpenter. You had mentioned that he's a carpenter, and you still have some of his old tools in your
right,
collection. And
right,
you had said that the house that him and grandma had, he had built a china hutch into the wall, and
right.
he had a couple of other really neat things. But he was a master carpenter. He was very
Yeah,
good at
yeah.
carpentry.
He was a Finnish carpenter, and like a rough carpenter that does the framing
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. They're good and hard work and everything, but the bulk of the house is done by Finnish carpenters.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
that's
do all
really
of this, like they do this windows and the doors and the siding and all that stuff, everything other than the framing. Framers are through and the skeleton's up, then the Finnish carpenters move in and they finish the house. Yeah. Um,
So
he was
he was part of a lot of the development of Colorado Springs and Manitou Springs, which is where a lot of grandma's side of the family, your mom's side of the family actually landed, was in Colorado Springs. They moved from Loveland down to Colorado Springs. So that's really
right.
interesting that our family kind of landed there anyway.
Yeah.
After all, at least one side. So that's really interesting how it kind of all circles back. And I remember going to Colorado Springs as a kid many, many times. And I love it there. It's a very beautiful city. And
Yep.
there's a lot of beautiful architecture there. So that'd be
And you
really
do.
interesting to have known if he had helped with, you know, been able to know which buildings he helped build. That'd be neat.
I
I
would
guess
have
we'll
been.
never know.
I would like to know that too, but that's
Yeah,
probably
probably never.
buried in antiquity. I'm not even sure who he worked. I don't think he worked independently. He was, probably working for a construction company, some
Probably.
builder, and I could, maybe go into the archives of all these older construction companies and find some records who their workers were and find him in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
that'd
So
be neat.
was, yeah, and in World War One, now he was in the army,
Mm-hmm.
and he was he went down to Texas. I'm not sure where. I'm not even sure he went through basic training in the army, but ended up down in Texas. He was in the balloon corps.
Okay.
The, they had in World War One. They had these. Well, they had these back in the Civil War, but in World War One, they had the balloon corps, and what they were doing is they were putting balloons up because it was trench warfare. Everybody was in trenches, and everything was
Right.
fixed. Nobody really did any moving around. They just stayed in the trenches, and they had to know. They needed to know where they were. Uh, where the trenches were in relation to the good guys' trenches and all that kind of stuff, and where they could
Okay.
maybe get through. And so they had these balloons. They'd put a guy in the balloon. He'd go up. He would take pictures and use binoculars, telescopes,
Ah,
and stuff to
okay.
see where the bad guys were and all this. And Grandpa went down to Texas and learned how to. They inflated the balloons with hydrogen, so he had to work with hydrogen gas, which is highly flammable, and it is generated through chemical reactions. So they would set up these tanks or something, and they would generate hydrogen gas, and he would fill up balloons, and But he never got out of Texas.
Hmm.
Never. By the time he was trained and ready to deploy to France, the war was over.
The war was gone.
So
Well,
he just went
thank
home and
goodness.
got married.
Yeah. Home got married. So
Yeah,
that's
went
a
home.
cool story.
Yeah, like
So
found his future wife there.
that's
I
right.
guess I'm not even sure where they were. I'd have to look up to see if they were married. They had pretty primitive records.
Ye-
Nebraska was. They were not very good record keepers, so they don't
Ah,
even have a record of a lot of marriages. There's no record,
that's
but
unfortunate. Hmm.
I'd have to look through there to see. I've got the date they were married, but I don't have a marriage license or anything else.
Right.
Yeah, and they were married in
So
Nebraska.
yeah. So we have time for one more story, and
Okay.
I wanted you to share the one about the brother that disappeared in Alaska. That's a family
Oh,
legend. So go ahead and tell that one.
okay. When Ole came from Sweden, came with his little brother. They came together and
Do you know what the
did.
brother's name was?
Excuse me.
Do you know what the brother's name was?
Uh, Not really. I'd have to
Yeah,
go.
I don't
I'd have
think.
to do more research. But yeah, his one brother is buried in Tut Hill Cemetery. Magnus is buried in Tut Hill, and I'm
Okay.
thinking, oh, since there's no actual records, that may be the brother, and he didn't go to Alaska. We don't know,
Huh.
or he went to
Okay.
Alaska and came
Came
back and
returned.
bought a town or something. I don't know. With just everything is just kind of we're just now starting to put everything together because Ole was an unknown. We didn't
Hmm.
know where he came from in Sweden. We finally found. We finally did the research and found he was from Barstop in southern Sweden. I mean, way down southern Sweden. We used to think he was from another town, and that's not. We thought he was from Hasselholm,
Okay.
but he wasn't. He was living in Hasselholm, but he was actually born in Farstop. Anyway, we found all that out, and then we found his whole family. We got his great grandparents going back into the
Ah,
1700s, and so we had
very
found
cool.
Ole after years of research. We finally found him, and
Okay.
anyway, he allegedly had a younger brother that came over from Sweden with him. They went to right away. They went to Nebraska. Not sure
Okay.
why. Maybe they had other family, like that weren't Olsons, because the way the naming system is in Sweden, your
Very
last
different.
name changes every generation. So
Yes.
he could have had an uncle named Nelson that lived in Nebraska, and he went to be with him or something. I don't know, but the story is when they had the gold rushes they had two gold rushes in Alaska. They had one in the Yukon in like 1896, I think,
Okay.
18 right in that area, and then they had another one in Nome, which was the one in Yukon was they were panning gold out of the river basically. The one in Nome was they were dredging gold out of the sand
Oh,
off of Nome.
wow.
And so the story is that somehow this brother found out about the gold rushes in Alaska, and he just off went up went to Alaska and disappeared.
And disappeared.
That is very feasible because the Canadians, the gold rush in the Yukon was in Canada. It was in the
Mm-hmm.
Yukon territory of Canada. And Alaska, of course, by then with the United States possession of the territory, they had one town that was in Alaska. And then when you left, it was, geez, name of the town, it's still there. Skagway. Yeah,
Yeah,
Skagway,
okay.
Alaska.
Yeah.
Had a port, had the port there. And ships would come in with the gold prospectors, and they would grab their stuff, throw it on the beach, and then there was a trail that went up over this mountain. There's a white mountain right there. There's this one trail that went up the mountain, and like you're going like 1,000 feet vertically, and like
Wow.
miles horizontally to get up to the top of this mountain. And the Canadians
So,
said you had to carry a year's supply up to the top of the mountain before you could go in interior Yukon. So these
wow.
poor guys, and I've read books and everything about it. These poor guys were just like pack mules. They put like 100 pounds of stuff on their back,
Oh
go
my
up this
gosh.
they call white pass. They go up this white pass to the top of the mountain, dump their stuff off, and go back down again. It's just constant, like ants, just going up this mountain. Thousands of people with hopes and dreams of being a millionaire, striking it rich in the Yukon, and
Yeah,
people
that's
would
rough.
be climbing this mountain and they'd drop dead
Oh,
because they were all malnourished. They weren't getting home cooked meals every day. They were living on
yeah,
jerky, jerky and whiskey probably. Anyway,
yeah,
they
nothing.
and they just drop dead, and somebody come pick them up and take them, and then
Oh,
they get to the top of the mountain with their year's supply. Then they had to get that stuff for the Yukon, and so they would hire these, you know, guides that would leave, that would take their stuff, put it on dog sleds or mule teams or whatever, and take it to the Yukon. And
that's
they would
crazy.
get stolen. Stuff would get stolen. There would be gunfights over, the piles of stuff, and it was a total cluster. I mean, it was just
Wow.
pandemonium. And so, if my uncle, who would be my uncle, was up
Mm-hmm.
there in that craziness, there's, you
You
know,
might not have.
he could have easily been killed at any minute, or
Yeah.
died of, because it was, you get up on the top of the mountain, it'd be like 40 below, and they had to, because they didn't stop coming because it was winter. They kept coming. Of
Yeah.
course, they would want to have a little break in the spring and summer, but that didn't
Yeah.
stop them from going up there. And there's another story. Jack London wrote a book about the gold rush to the Yukon,
He
and
did.
I'm not sure if it was it Call of the Wild, and there was another one called, I think, White Fang or something. But Jack London wrote books about this, and it's just, I've read the books, just unbelievable chaos and
Yes.
the worst of men coming out. I mean, they were absolute animals,
It
and
it was
they had
crazy.
no respect for anything or anybody, and
Yeah.
it was just, yeah, a terrible thing. And if my uncle was up there, there chances are he probably died up there because he couldn't speak English.
Yeah.
So
He
if he
could have
needed to have
perished.
something or someone to help him, he couldn't communicate. He only
Yeah.
spoke Swedish. So that was a
Ugh.
number one handicap right there. And then the fact that it was such a brutal killer of weather and, the whole spectrum of human weirdness was there. And
Yeah.
it was like a meat
Oh,
grinder. And just
that's
people would
crazy.
go there, never it, and you die up there. You don't speak English. You have any identification. They probably just kick you over and
Yeah.
let the coyotes eat you. They didn't
Yeah.
care.
The wolves will get you. So
And so
that's
it
wow.
was
Well,
it was terrible.
that's
And I,
that's
anybody
definitely
that went
one of
up there,
my more,
wow,
mysteriously favorite stories from the family. So
yeah.
yeah, I
But I
definitely
will,
liked hearing that
now that
story.
I know who Ole is, and I know pretty much his background. I think I can do some additional research. I didn't even know who he was, really. I mean, I didn't know where he came from. I don't know how much of a family he had, or just Ole, boom, and just a name. And it turned out that he wasn't his name. His name was Ola, Ola. That's what he was baptized. His
Okay.
baptismal name was Ola, Ola. And that's why we couldn't find him, because they were looking for Ole. Well, Ole was a nickname. And
Okay.
it was kind of interchangeable in Sweden. You're either Ole, Ola, Olaf, or Ole.
Something.
Ola,
Yeah.
Olaf. And that's where Olsen comes from, You're son
Yeah.
of Olaf, son of Ola, son of Ole, and then you become an Ole son. Because if you look in phone books and stuff, you'll see Oleson, Olesson, Oleson, Olason. Some have got two L, two S's, so it's a mess. It's and
It is a
trying to sort
mess.
through all that stuff and find one guy. You can do it, but it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Family history is pretty crazy. I think it's awesome how you and mom work on that together. So
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're out of time for this week. So
Okay.
I hope all you guys enjoyed our family stories that we had. Thanks for having some fun stories for us, Dad. We always love hearing about some of the interesting things from our family. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Please take care out there and be careful. Drive safe. And we will see you next week with our favorite guest, Dad. So you guys have a great week, and we will see you soon.